French presidential candidate Jean-Luc Melenchon is the leader of the far-left party Unsubmissive France. Melenchon has a strong support base, roughly equal that to socialist candidate Hamon at about 14%. And that vote will be vital for the presidential hopes of one of his competitors, Marine Le Pen. Now, it may seem illogical, voters of a far-left party supporting the candidate of the far-right. And how left, you ask? Well, we're talking hammer and sickle left. But the theory isn't as far-fetched as you might think. Indeed, if Le Pen is to win the second round, she needs all the help she can get. And defectors and apathy from Melenchon's voters will be key. All you have to do is look across the Atlantic to the United States to see three clear historical precedents in other presidential elections. In 1968, the Democrats nominated Vice President Hubert Humphrey to take on Richard Nixon. Humphrey defeated the Liberal challenger Senator Eugene McCarthy. Now, McCarthy's base was broad and disunited, but a common theme ran throughout his supporters. They all hated the status quo, and when they cast their ballots in November, they found a way to register that dissatisfaction. In 1968, a third-party candidate named George Wallace was a prominent force. A warhawk and an unashamed racist, Wallace had little in common with the Liberal Senator Eugene McCarthy. Yet in November that year, 18% of McCarthy's supporters voted for the Southern challenger. The result? Nixon narrowly won the White House. Why did they vote this way? Well, because Wallace was the only way to voice their dissatisfaction with the status quo. That same rebellion against the status quo can be seen in 1980. Ted Kennedy failed to win the Democratic nomination against incumbent President Jimmy Carter. When the vote was held, 27% of Kennedy's supporters voted for Ronald Reagan, who of course won the election. Again, dissatisfaction with the status quo is what propelled a significant component of Kennedy's base into the arms of the Republican Reagan. Finally, in 2016, that same phenomenon occurred. Donald Trump won the 2016 election because enough Bernie Sanders supporters either stayed at home or switched their vote. Michigan and Wisconsin, two states that Sanders won in the primaries, narrowly voted in favour of Trump. Likewise, Pennsylvania, a state with similar demographics that Sanders performed well in, completed the blue wall which delivered Trump the presidency. In Clinton, these voters, dismayed with their current situation and the status quo, could not see a candidate they could support. Again, 2016 provided a clear example of individuals having once supported the anti-establishment candidate on the left, switching their votes and backing the anti-establishment candidate on the right. This is how Marine Le Pen can benefit from Melenchon's supporters. Don't get me wrong, the majority will not back her, but come the second round, the policies of the Front National will look preferable to some when compared to those of Emmanuel Macron. Furthermore, Macron is a former investment banker. He's gaining support from the establishment with each passing day. The more Macron becomes an insider, the more he becomes one with the establishment, the more attractive Marine Le Pen becomes to these voters dissatisfied with the status quo. Any future scandal will simply reinforce this trend for the frontrunner. Marine Le Pen won't win the French election because of the support of Melenchon's base alone, but if she does win, it will be in no small part due to Melenchon's voters either switching their vote to Le Pen or refusing to partake in the second round. At first, it sounds preposterous that the far-right candidate could receive support from the voters of the far left, but history shows otherwise. Thanks for listening to Black Swan Politics. With French, German, and potentially Spanish and Italian elections later this year, don't forget to subscribe to see all our content.